Our world is constantly evolving. As time moves forward, things change, which is why it's important to stay informed. So grab a notebook and pull up a chair, because the lecture hall is about to begin.
My name is Ronald Grenville Frazier. I'm a local historian. I love history, as we found out. I've been in Florida almost 20 years. I came from Worcester, Massachusetts. I live in Jensen Beach. I really enjoy history, local history, because when I got here, I said, boy, what about the history? So I delved into it. I started doing this at the House of Refuge. That's where I began this whole journey, doing lectures and tours and so forth. But it's very interesting. The more I research, the more I find historical importance, places of historical importance, like the House of Refuge. But this particular topic, the hurricane of 1928, is significant because we talked briefly in this lecture about Zora Neale Hurston. I don't know if you're familiar with her. Some of you may be. Zora Neale Hurston was a great writer of the Harlem Renaissance, and she wrote a book, and we'll talk about that book. And this book deals with this hurricane and the difficulty of African American people during this time. Over thousands perished in this tragedy, and they didn't identify the bodies. They buried them in a mass grave, and we'll talk about that. But Zora Neale Hurston, the first time I came across reading anything about her was in Massachusetts, and I said, wow, this is a very impactful book. It's about a young black girl growing up in the South, Jim Crow South, with prejudice and racism. And lo and behold, when I moved here, I said, boy, she resided in this area. She also taught at Lincoln Park Academy up in Fort Pierce, so there's a local connection. Unfortunately, when she died penniless, but we'll talk about that a little bit later on. Hurricanes, it's kind of like a bad word around here. When I moved here, I moved here from Massachusetts, bought the dream house, and then we had Francis, Jean, and Wilma. Does anyone remember that? Francis, Jean, and Wilma? And I'm going to use New York now for a minute. I was going back to Massachusetts in a New York minute. I said to my wife, this is crazy. We got one hurricane. What's the chances of another hurricane coming in the same place? And then it was just craziness. I mean, when I moved into my neighborhood, I moved into a cookie-cutter neighborhood. It was like the Twilight Zone, And what the hurricane did is it brought people out. We got to meet each other. That's what I missed about being up north, because you kind of knew your neighbors and so forth. And we experienced the 3 hurricanes. We got through it. So I know what the hurricane season is all about. These poor people in 1928 did not know it was coming. They didn't have the Weather Channel. They didn't have all of the radar that we have and the early warning systems in place. And it destroyed everything around the Lake Okeechobee. People actually thought they would be safer inland. Well, they weren't, because of the dike area that was built. It was very hastily built, and when the floodwaters came, it just overtook the dike, and what happened was a lot of people drowned. The forgotten hurricane, 1928. And it's also, historically speaking, 1920s is post-World War I, the Roaring '20s, as they called it, the roar of the factory, and everything's going good economically up until 1929, when we have the Great Crash. There's a lot of things going on in the economy. So Florida really gets a two-part negative right here. It gets the hurricane in 1928, and then we have the crash.
The Great Depression.
So first we have the Great Crash, then we have the Great Depression, right? And to add to that, 25% of the average unemployment during that time. 1 in 4 people were unemployed during that time. But getting back to hurricanes, as you know, all these hurricanes come right off the coast of Africa. We're always paying attention, especially around October. We're paying attention to the Weather Channel. When it comes right through Puerto Rico, that's when they start to get ideas that this is going to probably impact the coast of Florida. This is the area. Unfortunately, my pointer is not working over here. It's working, but in that area right there, this is where it comes ashore, around 6:15 p.m., September 16th, 1928. The city of Palm Beach, about 34 years earlier, was founded by Henry Flagler. It kind of put West Palm Beach on the map with the East Coast Railway. And his dream, was to bring that railroad all the way to Key West, which he does. So it was a playground for the rich and famous. Well, West Palm Beach grew up on the opposite side of Lake Worth as a place where the support staff lived during this time. Tropical climate, that's why we all moved from beautiful New England. In other places in the north, the blizzard of 78 comes into mind. I see pictures of that, and I go, oh my God, that was our hurricane, right? Trapped in the house for like 5 weeks. So when you come here and you got this beautiful Atlantic breeze, balmy climate, tropical, okay? On the opposite side of the county, a quite different situation was emerging. And we're talking about the area around the lake. It's called the Muck Bowl at this particular time. Agriculture is the number one business. Mainly migrant workers working in this area. It's very marshy terrain, mosquitoes. In the 1920s, canals and dikes were built across the region, diverting much needed water from the Everglades into Lake Okeechobee. Development did not benefit Florida's panhandle farmers, suffering from high inflation and low farm prices. So the economy, even before the Great Crash and Great Depression, was not that good for the people up there in the panhandle. So what do they grow? Vegetables, fruits. So they use a large migrant population to pick the fruits. This rich black muck soil near Lake Okeechobee was already being utilized for tremendous agricultural productivity. Just ask Big Sugar, right? That's why it's so important. Belle Glade is newly incorporated, growing steadily, fueled by rapidly expanding agriculture from nearby fields. So people are migrating to this area in Belle Glade. It's a poorer population. It's very rural. So these people working in this area, the people who own these businesses, are very dependent on the migrant help. Plowing, harvesting along the shores of the lake behind a hastily built muck levee. So it wasn't built to last a long period, storm. So where did they get the migrant workers? They were from the deep south, African Americans, and also the Caribbean. Working for $9 to $15 per week in the tropical sun. I don't know about you, but I can only take about an hour and a half in the sun. Then I make a beeline to go home. They lived in crude company towns, often miles from the glamour of the coastal resorts, the people of the Palm Beaches, the wealth and so forth. It would take years to rebuild the confidence and spirit of the Florida land boom. People were, there was a land boom in Florida. They were told to come to Florida to buy land, and a lot of this land wasn't suitable to purchase. When the Great Depression hit Florida, it had limited but meaningful impacts, and so many Floridians were already in a weak financial state. It's kind of like being, 1-2 punch. Also, the Mediterranean fruit fly also hurt the citrus industry. Certainly, many Floridians were hoping for the good old days, the wonderful and confident times of the Florida land boom. Kind of like what we're looking for today. We're looking for the good old days, right? When gasoline was 50 cents a gallon, right? I don't think they're coming back. The scope of the storm. The Great Okeechobee Flood and the telling of Florida's hurricane history. No other hurricane disaster can compare to its toll. Almost 2,000 dead in Florida. There's estimates of 3,000, as well as another 1,600 in the Caribbean. The hurricane was an unwelcome coup de grace to the Florida land bust. Over 13,000 homes destroyed. So people got to get up, move, and they didn't have the safety precautions today. They didn't have FEMA, They didn't have the American Red Cross like today. They did have some help, but nothing like that. This is a black and white picture, of course, but this picture was taken around Belle Glade. Everything is flooded out, and if when it gets wet, when the water subsides, then you have what do we have after that? What comes? The molds. The molds. Yeah, I remember the molds. The death tolls. At the time of the catastrophe, many in South Florida, the actual death count was way over 2,300. It could have been as high as 3,500. They did not have an accurate census like we have today. 1928 hurricane ranks one of the United States' worst natural disasters. Only the Great Galveston hurricane of 1900, over 8,000 dead. The Johnston flood of 1889, 2,200. The two hurricanes of 1893, 2,000 people each perished in those devastating hurricanes. The arrival on the coast near Palm Beach on the night of September 16, 1928, just 2 years after the Great Miami Hurricane, which is another hurricane lecture I do, and it's like in its predecessor, it casts its most sinister blow on those who lived on the southern edges of Lake Okeechobee. Even before the unnamed storm, packing 150-mile-an-hour winds that will peel anything off of a roof. Slammed ashore in West Palm Beach. They killed 1,500 in the Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, and the Bahamas. They said the wind got up to 200 miles an hour. Think about that. At 100 miles an hour, it's devastating. But at 150 to 200 miles an hour, that is incredibly bad. Tops of roofs come right off. Within moments of the making landfall in the Palm Beach County shoreline, its fierce winds left a trail of destruction between Pompano Beach to Jupiter Inlet. People could not get their boats out of the water, so people were caught by surprise. It's kind of like the 1938 hurricane up in New England. They were caught by surprise. This developing storm began in the far eastern Atlantic near Cape Verde Islands, right off the coast of Africa. It was first reported by the crew of the SS Comac at a latitude 17 degrees north and 48 degrees west. So they're going to use the radio. At this time, it was the most easterly radio report regarding the hurricane in the Atlantic ever received. So this is 1920s. This is the beginning of radio, right? The storm undoubtedly developed significant strength before it reached the first target, the island of Guadalupe, which it destroyed. The greatest tragedy in Puerto Rico slowly made news in the United States. Telegraph, just about the time Florida residents were receiving their first warnings of the powerful storm offshore. On September 15th, it swept through the Bahama Islands, dashing away Anemometer cups before they could record the highest winds. Residents of the Florida coast did what they could to prepare. Some secured their homes and others fled. Where are you going to go? In the early hours of 16th, San Felipe was poised. Now it has a name, 200 miles southeast of Miami. And already this large and powerful storm was being felt along the coast. You got the outer bands finally hitting the coast of Florida, which battered at gale force winds and the rolling surf. So they knew something was brewing. By nightfall, a hurricane made its lunge over the Florida coast near West Palm Beach. Experienced awesome power one would expect from a Category 4 storm. Has anyone ever experienced a Category 4 storm?
Hurricane Carol.
54.
Followed by Hazel.
Yeah, Category 4, Category 5, they're deadly. They're deadly storms. You know, a few years ago, they were expecting one to come ashore here as a Category 4 or 5, and something happened. It wobbled, thank God, you know, because if it came ashore, it would have been more devastation, you know. Tidal surge, winds were estimated 150 miles an hour. The barometric pressure was dropping. This is a devastation of the highest impact. This is Olive Street, West Palm Beach. You can see this is part of the cleanup, you know. Jupiter, Florida. Up the coast of Jupiter, many residents, both black and white, took refuge in the schoolhouse, which weathered the storm much better than their homes. One cement blockhouse collapsed during the storm, crushing several members of a family. The only reported deaths in Jupiter. Anyone ever climbed this? I did it twice, first and last. I said, let's go to the top. And you're up at the top, and you're like this, you know, looking out. But it's a beautiful view. The Jupiter Lighthouse, red brick sentinel that had witnessed many storms, was said to have swayed and remarkably 17 inches as mortar squeezed between the bricks like toothpaste. Imagine, hate to see that. That thing was built prior to the Civil War. Yeah, West Palm Beach recorded a total of 18.42 inches of rain during the week of the storm. Over 10 inches of which fell as the hurricane passed through. As you know, the drainage in Florida is not good. You know, that's a lot of rain. Witnesses report a lull lasted about 40 minutes, and the storm was moving at a forward speed of about 14 miles an hour. The enemy located in Puerto de Tierra lost one of its cups on September 13th, just when it registered a maximum speed of 150 miles per hour. Previously, the same instrument had measured 160 miles per hour for 1 minute. The city of San Juan was 30 miles away from the eye of the San Felipe when these measurements were recorded, because of which at the time it seemed possible some estimates of 200 miles an hour, which is devastating. The real story. The survivors of the great Okeechobee hurricane faced tough times. The whole town washed away in a matter of hours, wiping out generations of families with no one left to identify the dead. That's the sad part of this whole storm. They know the storm that killed half the population of western Palm Beach County and left every corner of the county tattered and broken. Fort Lauderdale Daily News, hurricane hits Sunday. All over, I mean, this is Minnesota. It was all over the country. You know, they were reporting this hurricane. The Winnipeg, even in Canada, they were reporting this hurricane. The devastation, the loss of life that separates the storm from almost any other. Between 25 and 3,000 people died that day, making it the second deadliest natural disaster in United States history. This is an actual, bloated bodies being washed up and so forth. Survival in Pahokee. In Pahokee, North Belle Glade, 9-year-old Jerry Grimes and family abandoned their home and waited out the storm in another house that Grimes' father had built 4 years before. The wind blew so hard it threatened to cave in the bedroom wall where brother-in-law Duncan Paget lay ill. Confined to his bed, he could only watch and hope while family members reinforced the heavy wall with 2x4s. This is the area impact right here, the northern part and the southern part of Lake Okeechobee. But it was like a tidal surge with the amount of rain. Sebring Farm near South Bay, Bernie Boots huddled with family and dozens of others in the sturdiest-looking farmhouse in the area. Still, the house moved off its foundation and floated on a wind-tossed water, pushed up against the roadbed, bouncing off it like a ball. It hit once more, bounced back, and started to fall apart. So people are actually trying to survive in anything that's strong enough, and it's not strong enough. in Clewiston. In roughly 6 hours, no one knew exactly how long winds churned the water in the shallow lake. The Humboldt Muck Dike broke and the well of water spilled out of the lake with the destructive force of a tidal wave. This is not on the ocean. Decades later, still rebuilding. In a matter of hours, towns of Clewiston to Canal Point, home to 6,000 people, washed in the sea of disaster. Weeks later, they were still digging out. Years later, they were still rebuilding. Decades later, the 28th storm and its aftermath still color Florida's past and its future. That is devastation. That is devastation. You notice the boats up there in the trees. No records. That's another thing. Forgotten. Historians, survivors suggest because politicians at the time downplayed the storm's severity, fearing a dampening of the tourism that kept the region afloat. People won't come to Florida. Forgotten because officials failed to adequately document the destruction for future generations. Forgotten because the vast majority of those who died were black migrant workers, segregated in life and abandoned in death. That's the unfortunate aspect of this. The reality. In Florida, although the hurricane destroyed everything in its path with impartiality, the death toll was far highest in economically poor areas in the low-lying ground right around Lake Okeechobee where the migrant workers lived. About 75% of the fatalities were from migrant farm workers, most of them African American. Black workers did most of the cleanup, and the few caskets available for burials were mostly used for bodies of whites. Other bodies were either burned or buried in mass graves. This is the United States of America, by the way. Yeah, this is, you can't see it clearly, but that's a body mangled up in the debris. Jim Crow, 1920s, just familiar with this? You know what Jim Crow is, right? Racism, prejudice, and bigotry. The Rosewood Massacre was a racially motivated mob atrocity in Florida during January of 1923. So the South knew about this type of environment. In the violence, at least 6 blacks and 2 whites were killed, and the town of Rosewood was abandoned and destroyed in what contemporary news reports characterize as a race riot. Racial disturbances were common during the 20th century in the United States, reflecting our nation's growing social changes, our rapid social changes. Lynchings. Florida had a especially high number of lynchings in the years before the massacre, including the well-publicized Perry race riot where a black man had been burned at the stake in December 1922. Racial friction in the South. Burials were segregated, and only mass gravesite to receive a memorial contained only white bodies. The inequity had caused ongoing racial friction. I'm mentioning all of this to lead up into Zora Neale Hurston. The efforts of the hurricane on black migrant workers is dramatized in Zora Neale Hurston's novel, Their Eyes Were Watching God. Hurston was born in Notasulga, Alabama, moved with her family to Eatonville, Florida in 1894. She later used Eatonville as the setting for many of her stories. It's now the site of the Zora Festival held each year in her honor. I understand in Fort Pierce they do celebrate Zora Neale Hurston every year. When she died penniless. Another great African-American writer, Alice Walker, had seen that. So she put the money up to have her get her a monument for her burial, where she's buried, which is appropriate. Like I said, she taught at Lincoln Park Academy, like in 1960, 1961. Lincoln Park Academy was the black school up in Fort Pierce at that time. This is Zora Neale Hurston. This woman was one of the great writers of the Harlem Renaissance, an intellectual revival of the 1920s. Their Eyes Were Watching God. This book is still read. I know some of the English teachers still utilize this book today in high school. Their eyes watching God is based on the all-black town in the same name which Hurston grew up. The town's weekly announced in 1889, colored people in the United States solved the great race problem by securing a home in Eatonville, Florida, a Negro city governed by Negroes. The hurricane that symbolizes the climax of Hurston's story has a historical inspiration. In 1928, a hurricane ravaged both coastal and inland areas of Florida, bringing torrential rains that broke the dikes of Lake Okeechobee. Scholars of the African diaspora note the cultural practices common to the Caribbean, Africa, and the United States. In their eyes were watching God in the book. The wind came back with triple fury and put out the light for the last time. They sat in a company with others in other shanties, their eyes straining against crude walls and their souls asking if he meant to measure their puny might against his. They seemed to be staring at the dark, but their eyes were watching God. That's a quote from her book. Yeah. This is not a good picture. Belle Glade, wreckage of Ford garage. Yeah. This is another picture of downtown Palm Beach. The many graves, unmarked and untended for generations, more than reflect the racial climate of our times, especially the 1920s. They expose a shameful chapter in Palm Beach County history, when public officials are now working to repair. To survivors, white and black, history's indifference to so seismic an event is offensive, whatever the reason. This is another picture of West Palm Beach. Man, it's just devastating. Sailboats were thrown from their moors. Buildings in downtown West Palm Beach splintered and popped, choking Clematis Street with debris. The Episcopal Church on Swinton Ave in Delray Beach was flattened. In Boca Raton, rail cars were blown off the tracks and a third of the buildings were demolished. Yeah, another picture of devastation. The first hit by violent weather, the coastal communities paid dearly. 4 people died in Jupiter. In Seaside Park, then called Kelsey City, Fred and Anna Nelms were escaping. They're falling home with vicious winds swept the couple's infant from the new father's arms, killing the baby instantly. But as a Category 4 monster raged westward, it saved its most crippling blow for small farming communities that lined the Lake Okeechobee's southern shore, between Clewiston and Canal Point. 6,000 people lived and worked, and nearly half would perish before the light of day. It was not the wind, said Roy Wood, 9 at the time, and hunkered down in relative safety under the upright piano in his family's Jupiter home. It was the water that devastated the people of the Glades. A 5-foot muck dike built to hold back Lake Okeechobee's waves during summer rains crumbled in the frenzied waters, unleashing a storm surge with the fury of a tidal wave. This is right around, notice the railroad ties there around the lake. Normally, the water level in the lake was maintained slightly above level of the land so the water could be drained off as needed. And the weeks before the storm, heavy rains had kept the lake high, so it was already saturated. By September 10th, the lake level had risen 3 feet in 30 days, and 10 more inches of rain that fell during the storm added to the burden. Yeah, this is around the lake. Houses were flattened. But it was the intense hurricane winds at 150 miles an hour that lifted the waters of Lake Okeechobee and tossed them southward, completely washing away entire communities and the dikes that were supposed to protect them, which did not. According to some reports, water rose from 4 to 6 feet in the first hour of the storm, and still watermarks in some buildings were almost 8 feet above the ground. If you were able to survive this incredible wall of water, and the darkness of the next few hours, Florida experienced the greatest tragedy. Nobody seemed to be too much alarmed, said Stallings, 20, then boarded up with his family in the Belle Glade grocery store until the water started coming in. One family strapped the children to a fallen tree. Some in Belle Glade rushed up to the water tower, kicking at anyone who got in their way, people looking out to save themselves. This is around Belglade afterwards. The barge in South Bay, Ed Forbes, a boat captain, got a call on the town's only telephone saying a deadly storm was headed his way. He and his son alerted as many of the community's 400 residents as they could, knocking on doors and corralling 200 to the safest spot Forbes could fathom, a construction barge moored in the nearby canal. This is the pier, Okeechobee City. Nearly all the people didn't get on the barge. Some part of the family was lost, said Much-Love Forbes' daughter. One woman floated as far as Belglade, 5 miles away. She was alive, but the water beat her up so badly, beat her clothes off, and she was black and blue, but she survived. Yeah, that's incredible. Recovering the bodies. Just as the killer storm had caught the people of the Glades unprepared, so did the sheer volume of the dead it left behind. Armies of volunteers built pine boxes to bury the bodies. Large trucks were commissioned to carry the dead to grave sites on a higher, drier ground. You know, Florida's pretty flat. They don't really have higher ground. Frank Stallings and his father's grocery store was flat, but whose family lived joined others in recovering the dead. Yeah. This is a picture loading bodies of those who were perished in the storm. Mass burial victims, Tamaran Avenue, West Palm Beach, 1928. Following the hurricane of 1928, hundreds of bodies of black citizens were buried in a mass grave in West Palm Beach. Many of these were believed to have been migrant farm workers. Others lived in lower cost housing located in the low-lying areas of Okeechobee. On September 12, 2002, it was placed on the U.S. National Register of Historic Places. The mass burial ground is located in West Palm Beach near the intersection 25th Street and Tamaran Avenue. The Port of Mallorca, following the storm, over 1,600 unidentified people were interred at Point Mallorca Cemetery, located in the tiny community of Point Mallorca, Florida. The cemetery was originally operated by the cities of Belglade, Pahokee, and South Bay, but today it is operated and maintained by the city of Pahokee only. This cemetery is located in the intersection of Southwest Kenner Highway, State Road 76, and Southwest Gaines Highway, State Road 15. This is a historic marker that you'll see on the side of the road of this mass burial site. On Tuesday morning, September 18th, 36 hours after the hurricane arrival, headlines around the nation summarized the calamity. Florida destroyed, Florida destroyed. The initial news of disaster at West Palm Beach was just beginning to emerge when a far more ominous catastrophe was discovered, a mind-boggling massacre on the edges of Lake Okeechobee. Struggling to find anything, Walter Molyneux family in West Palm Beach, the 1928 hurricane destroyed their house, although they found and saved some of their household goods. This is North Okeechobee near Sal Railroad, wiped out. This is South Park Street, Okeechobee Hardware, and you also have another hardware store across the street destroyed. This is a house destroyed, Eagle Bay, Okeechobee County, Florida. Downtown Okeechobee, devastation. Damaged house in Belglade, Florida, 1928 hurricane. Trucks carrying coffins to the Everglades. Everglades in the vicinity of Belglade underwater. This is Boca Raton. Delray Beach. So you can see the devastation in Florida was everywhere. This is Lake Worth, Palm Beaches, West Palm Beach, Pompano Beach. And a detailed and vivid account of these accounts chronicle in Lawrence E. Will's book, Okeechobee Hurricane and the Hoover Dike. In it, Will relives the storm and writes of the great irony of the disaster. This calamity occurred within a few miles of a large city and a world-famous resort, yet so isolated was the location that not until 3 days later did the state's own governor learn of its enormity. So even their own governor didn't know. Today, You see the governor on TV, telling the public, he's there for us and so forth. The governor learned 3 days later of the severity. So extended and so difficult was the terrain that after 6 weeks, the search for bodies was discontinued, with many still unrecovered. This is the Hoover Dike authorized in 1930, after all of these devastations. Yeah, completed in 1937, during the height of the Great Depression. Unfortunately, because of the bad publicity Florida had received after the 1926 storm and the economic bust that followed, some officials at first downplayed the disaster. But word of the tragedy soon spread and more relief poured in. The Red Cross was well prepared of the storm's aftermath, having gained valuable experience during the Miami hurricane and the flood at Moore Haven. Local volunteer chapters sent to work as soon as news of the storm's impact in Puerto Rico were known. Well before the hurricane struck Florida, the Red Cross had dispatched 6 experienced relief workers to the state. 6, think about that. Along the coast, piers, docks, waterfront structures were lifted by the tide and carried away for 100 yards. In some instances, houses were raised off their foundations, spun 90 degrees. Their porches and stairs twisted into tangled arrangements. Trees were knocked down in virtually every street, wrapped in webs of electrical cables. Throughout the area, the problems faced by the storm survivors were similar to those endured by survivors of the Miami hurricane. They lacked food, water, and thousands of homeless were in need of shelter, and they suffered emotional wounds of having to cope with disaster. Think about this. This is Florida with no air conditioning. They had no air conditioning really back then. Yeah, at least 26 lives were lost on the coast. After the storm, the American Legion was busy with rescue efforts and search for bodies. This Red Cross set up 22 emergency feeding centers. Soon thousands of refugees had access to food, clothing, and shelter. The people in the Glades were in particular need of clothing, as the swirling floodwaters left many of the survivors nearly naked. So what did they lose economically? Crop losses, tobacco, coffee, sugar, citrus, fruit crops were decimated, with coffee growers losing what they had previously appeared to be the most promising harvest in several years. Citrus growers losing their entire crop but managed to save most of the trees. Some towns near the eye of the storm were almost fully destroyed. That's where the wall is really, really impactful. Several 100,000 people were rendered homeless in Puerto Rico, an estimated 50 million, which today would be much higher, in property and crop losses occurred. As a result of the great disaster, also influenced the great Miami hurricane that affected Lake Okeechobee 2 years earlier, the Herbert Hoover Dike and numerous other flood channels were constructed to prevent similar devastation from reoccurring. So what we have today is a result of the New Deal. The causes of the Great Depression. The stock market, buying on margin, unequal distribution of wealth. There was all kinds of issues here. The stock market underwent rapid expansion, reaching its peak August 1929 after a period of wild speculation. By then, production almost declined. Unemployment had risen, leaving stocks in great excess of their real value. Among the other causes of the eventual market collapse were low wages, the proliferation of debt, a struggling agricultural sector, and excess of large bank loans that could not be liquidated. The economic crisis of the 30s is one of the most studied periods in American history, and facts about the Great Depression are interesting to read. Scholars have studied the economic calamity from all angles and amassed an immense collection of facts about the Depression. It wasn't just the United States thing, it was a world, global economic collapse. Some products and sayings we still use today have their roots in the Great Depression. Unemployment, as I said, 25% unemployment. Well, just think Florida, had a double impact. And that's just an average. Some cities had 80% unemployment. That's just an average. a nation average. The Great Depression peaked between 32 and 33. Some 6,000 street vendors walked the streets in New York City trying to sell apples for 5 cents each. Herbert Hoover kind of gets the bad rap for the Great Depression, but it wasn't all his fault. He just happened to be at the helm when it happened. You have the Hoover stew, the Hoovervilles, they were called. If you take your pockets out, those are Hoover flags. The people that survived the Great Depression will go off to fight in World War II. They would be called the greatest generation. They understood the value of a dollar, They weren't entitled, by any stretch of the imagination. Tough time for Floridians. Zippers became widely used because buttons became too expensive. Because the circulation of money was so low, the U.S. didn't mint nickels in 1932 or 33. Maybe you remember the song. The biggest song hit of 1932 was "Brother, Can You Spare a Dime" by Bing Crosby. Adding to the harsh economic conditions, the 1929 hurricane and Mediterranean fruit fly had invaded Florida's citrus and other crops in April of 1829, and quarantine was put on the state. So Florida is facing all of these economic hardships. This restricted farmers from selling their citrus to anyone outside of Florida, which greatly hurt Florida's economy, given that citrus made up about 50% of the state's revenue at the time. Yeah, people want a job, right? Florida in the Depression. Floridians accepted the 1929 stock market crash, the beginnings of the Depression, with a little bit more understanding than most of the nation. They were already feeling hardship. After all, Florida had suffered its own economic collapse in 1926. While Floridians are gradually rebuilding their economy, they have hurricanes. Hoover's poor farm. Hard times are still hoovering over us. The world's highest standard of living, but you still have soup kitchens. The basic industries, Schultz emphasized the return of Florida's basic industries and pull the state out of its economic doldrums. Money was scarce and tourist route was poor solution. On the other hand, Florida's citrus and agriculture showed good yields despite the low farm prices. Phosphate and cattle could not be hurt by a lack of visitors like banking and real estate. Floridians had backed Republican Herbert Hoover in 1928 when his views on continued growth seemed to be more in tune to the state rather than liberal Catholic Al Smith. But in 1932, Florida joined the rest of the South in supporting Franklin Delano Roosevelt and the Democrats. In 1932, the African Americans that supported the party of Lincoln moved over to the Democratic Party in great numbers in 1932. Yeah. While businesses and conservatives feared Roosevelt's reform plans, most Floridians wanted reform and change. Banks were closing in Florida. Florida stock was declining in value. Migrant workers, shanty towns. The New Deal programs forever changed the outlook many Floridians had towards the role of federal government in their lives, while rural Florida needed farm supports and urban Florida needed jobs. There was still great reluctance for the federal government to take over Florida's institutions. What will bring us out of the Great Depression? World War II. World War II. Local Democratic leaders sought ways to reap the benefits of federal funding without the stigma of federal bureaucracy. The Roosevelt administration was cleverly political enough to accommodate Southern politicians to appease conservative constituencies. Okay, so I can picture WPA, Works Progress Administration, WPA. There are still some buildings, I know in Jensen Beach, on Indian River Drive, where they have the kids in the summer, they go and they play with the fish, and that building was built by the WPA. Yeah, a lot of CCC, Civilian Conservation Corps. A funny story I have from that, in Worcester, Massachusetts, I met this gentleman, his name was Bill Thomas. And I was in my early 20s, and he worked at this factory I was at the time. And I said, Bill, man, you know, you're 60 years old. You got biceps and triceps. What did you do? He says, I was a professional boxer. I said, oh, really? He said, yeah, I was in the CCC camp up in New Hampshire. And he says, there were 500 boys in the camp, and 496 were white. So he says, I had to fight every day. That's where he learned to fight. That was his story of the CCC. I had an uncle who would cut a cord of wood by hand, you know, 4 by 8, you know, for like 10 cents. People would work for almost nothing back then. This is like one of these shanty towns right here. Yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here for me today.